and dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
To Anti-Tyranny News Radio here on UCY.tv. Thank you for joining me this evening. We're going to kind of dive into this whole mess with the tragic shooting, but with tragedy, we have politicians again trying to play off people's emotional reaction directly after this. And I just don't see where it's going to lead anywhere good. We constantly have this push, and with Trump trying to play, we'll make bargains type, businessman, Trump, will he be willing to put any gun legislation chips on the table? I don't know. This could be bad. He could hold strong on individuals' rights, but we're going to have to see how this really plays out, because he's also made comments about, the whole teachers and kids, shouldn't feel unsafe in school. I'll kind of get further into what I think about a lot of this, but we're going to dive into Ron Paul Liberty Report. And he questions, where was the FBI? There was plenty of evidence out there that evidently the FBI was aware of. So we'll dive into this.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning into the Liberty Report. With me today is Daniel McAdams. Daniel, good to see you.
How are you, Dr. Paul?
I'm doing well, but I want to talk about a subject which is not much fun, and I wish we could just forget about them. But I do want to make a few comments and have you comment on that terrible tragedy in Florida. Yeah. I mean, the killing of 17 kids. How could anything be more tragic than that? And everybody are wringing their hands, and, the left has come out immediately. Well, it's all the guns. Get more guns off the street, more gun regulations. That'll solve the problem. Others will say, well, you should have guns in places, and the solution is that teachers have guns. I'm not so sure that is a simple answer whatsoever, because if you had a private school, the school would decide, the safety issues and how you handle guns. But nevertheless, it is an utter tragedy. And the reason that we've suggested that we talk a little bit about the FBI is there's some type of evidence that they were fully warned, which is not something brand new, because I might mention later on the difference times the FBI should have been involved, and they fall flat. And of course, we read about the FBI all the time right now. What are they doing? They're in Russiagate, and they're testifying who's lying on this. It's all politics, and it looks like sometimes they're not doing the job that they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, that's certainly the case, and obviously it's impossible for them to get every lead down, but there was something that came out. A gentleman, Ben Benight, on his YouTube page, he noticed a crazy comment. I'm going to be a professional school shooter, from someone called Nicholas Cruz, which is the name of the person who shot up the school, and he sent this to the FBI tips email. And the FBI did contact him. They didn't just completely drop the ball. They contacted
the person that gave the release.
He sent it and asked if he knows this guy, knows anything about him. He said, no, I'm just passing this on. So we don't know what happened. We don't know the entire story. Yet we still can talk about how they do a lot of things that they shouldn't be doing.
And they fall. Some of their, some of their information gets false to the track, and they don't follow up on it. But here's a guy. I mean, he was waving a lot of flags. Yeah. I mean, he was in a tough home situation. His parents had recently died. He's been in school. He's a troublemaker. He was suspended, and then he was expelled. And people knew that he really had, a lot of problems. And now we read, which always seem to come up, and I especially pay attention to this. I don't know the details, but he was getting mental health treatment. Uh-huh. And a big question has he been on psychotropic drugs? And so often this is the case. Those drugs can do the reverse. Instead of calming somebody down, they can turn them into suicidal individuals and also violent people. Now, that's not my opinion of what happened, but boy, that raises questions, because a lonely kid, no family, and having all these problems. Somebody said, well, we'll get you some help. Maybe medication will take care of you. Well, I have a strong disbelief that those medications are very, very helpful. Maybe rarely so, but I just am not very trusting of those medications.
That does seem to be a common denominator in the mass shootings, and maybe it's just circumstantial, but it certainly does. But yeah, there are a lot of red flags. I mean, he apparently, according to press reports, he would post things on social media like, quote, I want to shoot people with my AR-15, which is what he did. So that's kind of gives an indication that it shouldn't have been a real shock that the guy was doing this.
It doesn't seem strange, at least it does to me, thinking of a kid that's walking, a 19-year-old kid, man, that was known on the campus, known to be a troublemaker, walks in with a rifle and not be noticed and get away with all this. I just don't understand how those kind of things happen, but it surely did, and there is the tragedy. But my beef is that I've never had much confidence in the FBI. I mean, they've had a good reputation, but over the years, they haven't really done their job. They're usually spying on Americans, and from the very beginning, they've been doing they spy on people and use for political reasons. How about just recently? What's the FBI been doing? You see them on TV. They're involved in Russiagate and all these investigations, and they're proven to be liars at times. And they're doing that and not following up with a lead like this. That seems to be a problem. But just think in our recent history, we have this tragedy at Ruby Ridge. The FBI was involved there. Nobody was punished. Even in 9/11, don't get into this conspiracy stuff. And I don't even have to. All you have to do is say, what about the FBI agent that knew something and I think reported, if I'm not mistaken, like into the 20s, like 25 times or so, tried to report to his the higher officials about people training to fly airplanes but not land them. They didn't do anything. So is this totally ineptness or what's going on here? But I would think also if you had the FBI doing the job they're supposed to be doing, maybe they should have been involved in telling us what was going on at the Davidian compound rather than just murdering those kids. So to me, I think they have a lousy reputation, and yet most of the time, especially from the conservative wing of the political spectrum, they say, this is true, what you're saying, Ron, there is a problem, we need to clean it up, but that's just a few people. I think it's a culture. I think it's a job that was never meant to be. It wasn't established in the Constitution, and they're not doing the job. But people are dependent on it. I'll call. What did this young man do? He sees this guy writing about killing people. Call the FBI. They call the FBI, and they'll take care of us. But I would think people eventually will lose confidence in the FBI to solve these problems. But I think it's so sad because it isn't easy. It isn't some of the foreign policy problems that we deal with. I think the solution is much easier, just get out of the way and mind our own business. But this is a little more complicated. But if you think in terms of privacy, private property, private schools, homeschooling, you don't have these kind of problems. I mean, it's in the government atmosphere of schools, but that sounds like a blanket accusation, which I don't mean it to be, but I do know the environment there seems to be different than if you have a private school. You have less drugs and less violence, but I would say that it's still possible because people do have mental problems and they do get on these drugs, and everybody is vulnerable. But there sure is almost like getting to be an epidemic. It used to be, this is an isolated incident, but this is getting a little bit too common to just say it's isolated. So there's something terribly wrong with our culture if this continues to go on or increase in frequency.
And, we understand that it's not a perfect world, but it is a matter of priorities, like you say, with the FBI. The other thing that they're involved in is half the time that they make a big terrorist arrest, they've been motivating this terrorist. They've been, colluding with this potential terrorist. Usually it's a loner or a loser that they hook up with and say, hey, don't you want to bomb something? Don't you want to bomb something? So they get involved with this too. So it's an issue of priorities. And I think we would argue that their priorities right now seem a little bit screwy.
Yeah, and I think the thing you mentioned there about how they get involved in and deal with people, and that is the principle of entrapment. And our government does it all the time, and they should never be allowed to break the law to try to get somebody else to break the law so that they can, take him in and arrest him. But this is not a simple matter. I think just any decent person would feel, such a tragic, be so tragically disappointed with what's happened with these needless deaths. But there has to be something good that can come from this and a better understanding of how to handle problems with this. And hopefully someday we can contribute to that. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report, and please come back soon.
Ron Paul Liberty Report, RonPaulLibertyReport.com, and Ron Paul Liberty Report on YouTube. Check them out. Subscribe. Now, I've had a big thing about public schooling for the educational side of it. But this has always also been another thing that I've spoke out about it before. But putting that many kids in one building. And then, making it gun-free zone. You have your one officer at some schools, not all schools, but I know a lot of the schools around Indiana, they have one or two officers in a large building with thousands of kids, not including all the staff on top of it. I don't see it as a good model for definitely a public school. I don't like public schools, but, in not liking how public schools operate, that plays a big part of it. Honestly, I think if we are to have public schools like that, they should be smaller schools spread out. But of course, it makes it easier for the school board and the people getting paid all the good money, not the teachers, but the school board and all those people that just sit there and make up rules and ways they want to do things. it's easier for them to kind of consolidate all that into one big building. Then you only need one principal. Then you only have to pay that one, principal that higher wage, and the assistant principal a little bit less, and then we'll overpack the classrooms with 50 students, and we'll throw a non-teacher, just a teacher assistant, in a classroom because we're overpacking them. So if we put an extra adult in there, that kind of just goes around and might help a kid or two, do simple things. It's just a bad model. Public school in general is a bad model, but that makes it even worse. But again, that's how they like to play it because, well, it helps them consolidate money. Now, when it comes to, the shooter, like they brought up in that Ron Paul Liberty report, there was mental illness there. There was evidence of issues with this kid. And it is a very important question to know whether he was on psychotropic drugs. Because it seems like a lot of these shooters are. Why? Because, well, just look at, any antidepressant commercial that you've ever seen where it says, oh, here's a antidepressant. Side effect may cause depression. Then they came out with the Nerve pill. Here's a pill. Is your antidepressant not working? Here's another pill to take along with that antidepressant. Side effect may cause depression. So now you got two pills that are supposed to be antidepressants, and then they have the side effect of depression. Okay, well, if the first one's not working, then you could maybe experience the side effects, or you may be experiencing the side effects. Instead of taking you off that, we'll just add this one, and hopefully that'll work. If not, you're just really screwed because it might just make you kill yourself. That is like, what are we doing? There seems to be so many problems with the pharmaceutical industry that you'd think there would be a full-on investigation. But no, we're going to talk about taking people's guns away, because that's just easier. Really, it just gives them control, and then you're still going to be under threat. Crazy people are still going to be running around trying to kill people. Then for those that go, I'm not ever going to use a gun to defend myself. Oh, we outlaw all guns, and people going around hurting each other and robbing and stealing, raping, killing, and oh, well, it's getting so bad out there, I kind of might want a gun now. But, I decided to go with no guns. And now there isn't a legal gun I can buy. If it gets bad enough, some people might become criminals just to protect themselves. And people have been caught. Definitely people that don't live in the best area of a city. They were young. They might have, caught a drug charge or something because they were trying to get a job. But, definitely after 2008. Um, Even with my resume, it was extremely hard to get another job. Um, you have all that, and they get caught with the pistol. You ask a lot of those people, they're like, I'd rather get, locked up for having the pistol than, get caught in the alley with that one. They feel like they live in a war zone. You want to see anarchy on the streets? It's here in America. You go in some of the worst neighborhoods in America, the highest crime rate. Guns aren't allowed, but they're there. And the people trying to obey the law that now cannot protect themselves lawfully are caught in a war zone. A lot of those people become criminals because, well, I'm going to buy one of these, guns and have it in my house in case, someone tries to break in and, kill me, rob me, rape my wife, People are being put between a rock and a hard place. What's their answer? A lot of time, oh well, we'll put more cops out there. Well, the more cops are a lot of times catching the people that aren't the ones that are out there committing the heinous crimes. They're the ones out there trying to make a dollar and try to protect themselves. And this, doesn't condone any type of criminal activity, but this is saying that our laws are all lawful. The right to defend yourself is a natural right. Nature doesn't go, okay, there was one, rabid hog out there and it went around tusking other hogs for no reason. Killed a whole bunch of other hogs with its tusk, so all you hogs are going to have to lose your tusks. That way, you guys can't go around hurting each other. No, nature doesn't say that. What does nature do? Gives the ability for others to have tusks, to protect themselves. You're not going to stop crazy by making laws that take rights away from law-abiding citizens. It just won't happen. That's that utopian fantasy. I remember back 2007, 2008, Ron Paul running for president, even back in 2006, oh, you're one of those libertarians. You believe in this utopian fantasy without government, and without government, everybody will get along and everything will just be so peachy. No, that's not what libertarians think. We're saying that government and laws have yet to ever protect people or stop crazy. Instead, we've actually found a lot of crazy people in government or, positions of power. Sick individuals, criminals, they're in all, areas of government. Now we've actually, with having that type of a federal government, we've invited corruption. The federal government was never meant to be a standing body, as that's all they do. Most of them, that's all they do. That's their career. Oh yeah, they might make some side business deals, invest in that, but for the most part, that's all they do. Give me a second here. Fix up. Okay, sorry, I'm having a glitch here. I was trying to get this article up, but I got it. This one from Reason.com. None of these popular gun control proposals would have prevented the Parkland shooting. Says here a graph in the New York Times published last year circulating again on social media in the wake of the Parkland massacre attempts to map the popularity of different policy responses to mass shootings, both among experts and among general public. Notably, none of the policies ranked both effective and popular appear likely to have stopped Wednesday's grisly shooting. Universal background checks Nicholas Cruz, the man charged with the shooting, purchased his AR-15 legally at Sunrise Tactical Supply, according to a law enforcement official who spoke with the Associated Press. A special agent at the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives told the New York Times that Cruz passed federally mandated instant background checks, saying no laws were violated in the procurement of this weapon. Another policy beloved by both the public and the surveyed public safety experts is a prohibition on violent criminals possessing guns. Cruz, however, had no criminal history. One of the less punitive policies plotted on the New York Times graph is expanded mental health treatment. Broward County Mayor Beam Furs says Cruz had been receiving treatment at a mental health clinic but stopped going about a year ago. One could well make the argument that continued therapy might have prevented Cruz from committing the crimes he did, but it is clear he had access to therapy. Policies deemed effective but slightly less popular include bans on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. As any number of firearms experts have stated, assault weapon is a political classification, not a technical one. Sorry, just making sure everything's okay over here. It does not denote enhanced lethality, as everything from a folding stock to a bayonet mount can get a firearm labeled an assault weapon. the 1994 assault weapons ban prohibited the AR-15 on these cosmetic grounds, but even if this law were effective today, Cruz could still have carried out his crime with an equally lethal, a bit less flashy weapon. High-capacity magazines are likewise something of an artificial category. Media reports list everything from a 60-round magazine to a 16-round magazine as high capacity. Of the states that do restrict magazine size, most draw the line at the 10-round mark. As of right now, we do know the size of magazines Cruz used, though a 30-round magazine for AR-15 is considered standard. In any case, the fact that Cruz was reportedly actively shooting students and faculty for several minutes before police arrived suggests that he would not have been slowed much by having to stop and reload more frequently. In addition, the fact that there already exists a huge number of high-capacity magazines and can be purchased for as little as $13 means that actually enforcing any prohibition of the things would face huge practical hurdles. Mass shootings are horrific, and any measure that might reduce their frequency are worth considering. However, most of the policies favored by experts and the public would have done nothing to prevent this latest tragedy. Again, that was from Reason.com. And I have one more from them. And this is disarming individuals with mental illness would affect a quarter of the population. How do we make sure that individuals with mental illness do not touch a gun? Florida Governor Rick Scott asked yesterday, responding to the shooting that killed 17 people at a Broward County high school on Wednesday. The question, reminiscent of NRA Executive Vice President Wayne LaPierre's demand for an active national database of the mentally ill after Sandy Hook massacre in 2012, is woefully misbegotten, casting an unmanageably wide net into the wrong ocean. Survey data indicate that half of all Americans will qualify for a psychiatric diagnosis at some point in their lives, with a quarter of them do in any given year. Does Rick Scott or Wayne LaPierre think the government should strip 160 million people, or even just 80 million, of their Second Amendment rights because their mental illness might predispose them to commit a mass murder? Federal law currently stops far short of disarming all individuals with mental illness, disqualifying from gun ownership only those who have undergone forcible psychiatric treatment, which is supposed to be based on a legal finding that they pose a danger to themselves or others. That rule is already unreasonably broad, since it means that someone who poses no threat to other people, someone who, say, is committed for treatment because his relatives think he might be suicidal, is not allowed to exercise his constitutional right to armed self-defense, even decades later. Yet the rule was not broad enough to stop Nicholas Cruz, the man charged with carrying out the attack on Florida High School, from legally purchasing his rifle he used. Cruz was treated for depression, and he was, according to former neighbors and fellow students, weird, troubled, angry, and sometimes scary. But he did not have a psychiatric record that disqualified him from buying a gun. So the question for those who have given the matter a little more thought than Rick Scott did is whether Cruz could have been thwarted by a policy that goes further than the current rule, but not as far as disarming one half or 1/4 of the population. One possibility touted by gun control advocates is a law like the one California enacted in 2014, which allows a police officer or an immediate family member to seek a gun violence restraining order that prohibits the individual from possessing firearms and authorizes police to seize any he currently owns. Such an order can initially be obtained without any notice or adversarial process, and it can be extended based on standards that invite abuse, especially since immediate family members include not just spouses, children, siblings, and parents, but also domestic partners, current or former roommates, step-parents, parents-in-law, grandparents, step-grandparents, step-siblings, siblings-in-law, stepchildren, children-in-law, and grandchildren. If the applicant is a cop, he must have reasonable cause to believe the subject of the petition poses the immediate and present danger of causing personal injury to himself or someone else. If the applicant is a relative or roommate, he must show there is a substantial likelihood that the subject of the petition poses a significant danger in the near future of personal injury to himself or someone else. Either standard suffices to take away someone's right to arms for 3 weeks, after which he has the opportunity for a hearing where the petitioner has to show by clear and convincing evidence that he poses a significant danger of personal injury to himself or others. If the judge decides that test has been met, he issues a 1-year restraining order that can be renewed annually. In 2016, Washington voters approved a broader version of California's Initiative 1491, added dating partners, baby mamas or papas, former legal guardians, and all relatives, including aunts, uncles, cousins, to a list of people who can seek what it calls an extreme risk protection order. The Washington law also extended the deadline for the former roommate, which could be an ex-spouse or ex-lover, seeking an order from 6 months after moving out to a year. And it loosened the criteria for both the initial order, which can be issued based on a reasonable fear that the respondent poses a significant danger to him or others, and a 1-year order which requires showing by a preponderance of the evidence that the respondent poses a threat to him or others. Both laws leave a lot of leeway to unjustifiably deprive people of their constitutional rights. And you can read the rest of that one at reason.com too. And again, that one was titled Disarming Individuals with Mental Illness Would Affect a Quarter of the Population. Now, I'm going to dive into another clip. This one here from Stefan Molyneux. We have a lot of issues that we really need to, tackle. But we got so many extremely emotional people. It's not good for society to be over emotional, because really the emotional side will not let you think clear. If you've ever been in a bad relationship where maybe you were mistreated, most people that are in those relationships that stick around for a while in those type of relationships, most of those people are so emotionally connected to that person. They have that emotional and love for that person that a lot of times they can be blind to a lot of it. And the longer they stay in it, the more they stay blind to it. And a lot of times you see that it's not until they get out of that situation that when they're not, you know, when they can break that emotional, you know, feeling for a minute and they can really think clear, that's when you see the brain start, you know, overcoming the emotion, and they're going, you know, that person was using me. That person, if they really cared, they would have never done that. That person didn't love me. And they start really, well, when that person was doing that, they were, that makes more sense. Whoa, you know, you see that awakening. Because, again, they stopped just relying on the emotions and they started to realize, you know, hold on. I kept trying. I was trying to figure out what I was doing wrong, and I was doing everything right. It was that they just really didn't care, and they were going to use me until I was used up. And I've seen that happen so many times. And right after it, you know, they still have that emotional bond to that person, and they're kind of heartbroken, and they're like, you know, probably should have done this, or I probably could have done that better. Or then they're like, hold on, you know, why was I the only one trying? I'm like, yeah, you know, it's hard to tell, you know, people that sometimes when they're in that, because then they'll want to blow you off. Because, again, they're into that emotional response to everything. And that's what we get after these tragedies. You get that emotional response. And I tend to not to even get it anymore the way I used to. And I've not come numb to it because, like, I really feel heartbroken for, you know, people that lost family members. It just, I don't like to see the loss of life. Like, even I fish, I hunt. When I go hunting, like, you don't go hunting with me and not be a good shot, and you don't take a shot that you're not going to get that kill shot. Like, I don't like that type of, let's shoot at something 3 times and hear it scream for, you know, 20 minutes running through the woods, or, you know, I don't do that. You better be a damn good shot. Because I don't take a shot unless I know it's going to be a one-shot kill. I don't believe in letting animals suffer, even though I'm about to eat it. I just don't like that. So, even though I would protect myself if I needed to, I don't want to be put in the position to have to protect myself. I don't like the loss of life. There's better options. But the thing is, I can't make the choices for everyone. I can't, you know, make the choice for the person that feels like they're, you know, beat down, wore out, and they're broken. they're at that breaking point. They give up type attitude. Give up on life, anything goes. I can't go, I could try to tell someone that's in that position, if I'm aware that they're in that position, that, there's a better way. There's better days. And you really want to know the meaning to life. It's the simple, everyday struggle to survive. Every day that you become older, that you grow, that you create a family, that you leave something for the next generation, that's the meaning of life. I can't tell you the meaning of the existence of human beings. But you have to get back up when you're down. You have to realize that if you're down, you're still in the game. Don't leave the game. Okay, we're going to get into this clip from Stefan Molyneux, The Truth About the Florida School Shooting, and Nicholas Cruz. And he's going to touch on some of what we've already covered, but he's going to get into, some of the timeline and, what's going on with that. So let's dive into it.
On Wednesday, February 14th, 2018, at approximately 2:30 p.m., 19-year-old Nicholas Cruz opened fire at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, killing 17 people and wounding 13 survivors, including 2 people who remain in critical condition. The suspect was reportedly armed with an AR-15 style rifle, countless magazines of ammunition, a gas mask, and even smoke grenades, as he set off a fire alarm and brought students out from their classrooms and into the school hallways prior to the shooting. According to student Noah Parnes, we saw a bunch of teachers running down the stairway, and then everybody shifted and broke into a sprint. I hopped a fence. Student Max Charles said, we were in the corner away from the windows. The teacher locked the door and turned off the light. I thought maybe I could die or something. Upon escaping the school, Charles saw 4 dead students and 1 dead teacher before connecting with his mother. I was happy that I was alive. She was crying when she saw me. Cruz was apprehended on Wednesday and charged on Thursday with 17 counts of premeditated murder in the 3rd deadliest school shooting in American history. He actually filtered out with the students and escaped the scene. Cruz had been previously expelled from Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School for disciplinary reasons, but school officials refused to provide specifics. Various school students have suggested that Cruz was kicked out for bringing knives to school, was once found with bullets in his backpack, and got into a fight with his ex-girlfriend's new boyfriend. It has also been reported that Cruz was previously considered enough of a threat that an email was circulated warning against allowing him on school grounds with a backpack. According to high school math teacher Jim Gard, who actually taught Cruz, we were told last year that he wasn't allowed on campus with a backpack on him. There were problems with him last year threatening students, and I guess he was asked to leave campus. So this is important. He's 19 now. Last year, he was 18. Now, if he was 18 when he made these threats, he's an adult making threats after showing up at school with bullets in his backpack and bringing knives. So he's bringing weapons to environment, and he is threatening students as an adult. Why is he not charged? Why is he not charged? If he had been charged, he would have been unable to buy a gun, I assume. If he had been charged, he might have been taken off the streets. We'll see the dominoes of institutional failure again and again in this horrifying situation. According to Superintendent Robert Runcie, we received no warnings. Potentially, there could have been signs out there, but we didn't have any warning or phone calls or threats that were made. On the morning of the shooting, Cruz told the husband of the family he was staying with that he wasn't going to his GED class. Quote, he said, it's Valentine's Day and I don't go to school on Valentine's Day. According to the family's attorney, Jim Lewis, they just blew it off. This is some 19-year-old that didn't want to get up and go to school that day, and they left it at that. According to Broward County Mayor Beam Furr, he had been undergoing some mental health treatment. We can't go into detail on that. I don't know if he was exactly on law enforcement's radar, but it wasn't like there wasn't concern for him. He had not been back to the clinic for over a year, so there's been a time where he was receiving treatment and then he stopped. It wasn't like there wasn't concern for him. We try to keep our eyes out for those kids who aren't connected. In this case, we didn't find a way to connect with this kid. He's making threats, bringing weapons to school. We'll get to his social media footprint, which is bloody and deep. Can you not monitor his social media? His mom died. Cruz is being held without bail and reportedly on suicide watch after threatening to kill himself. Cruz's public defender, Melissa McNeil, said, when your brain is not fully developed, you don't know how to deal with these things. That's the child I'm sitting across from. He's sad. He's mournful. He's remorseful. He is fully aware of what is going on, and he's just a broken human being. I guess it's good for the legal system that some people are willing to do that job. According to former classmate Brandon Minoff, quote, he always just seemed very quiet and strange. When I got assigned to work with him, he started talking to me. He told me how he got kicked out of 2 private schools. He was held back twice. He had aspirations to join the military. He enjoyed hunting. I guess so. Former classmate Joshua Chato said, all he would talk about is guns, knives, and hunting. I can't say I was shocked. From past experiences, he seemed like the kind of kid who would do something like this. He used to tell me he would shoot rats with his BB gun, and he wanted this kind of gun, and how he liked to always shoot for practice. Former classmate Drew Fairchild said, he used to have weird random outbursts, cursing at teachers. He was a troubled kid. Former classmate Daniel Huerfano said, Cruz was that weird kid that you see, like a loner. Former classmate Nicholas Koch said, he had a lot of problems in middle school. You never think anyone you know is going to do something like this. Former classmate and fellow junior ROTC program attendee Giovanni Watford said, he was off. He was super stressed out all the time and talked about guns a lot and tried to hide his face. Former classmate Mike Watford. Cruz often said how tired he was of everyone picking on him and the staff doing nothing about it. Something definitely pushed him. Former classmate Victoria Olvera said, I think everyone had in their minds if anybody was going to do it, it was going to be him. Former classmate Matthew Walker. A lot of people were saying it was going to be him. A lot of kids threw jokes around saying that he was going to be the one to shoot up the school. It turns out that everyone predicted it. That's crazy. He was going class to class, just shooting at random kids. Everything he posts on social media is about weapons. It's sick. So the kids do. And you can see there are likes on his posts. 17 likes here. They saw, they knew, they talked about it, they discussed it amongst themselves. The kids knew. The adults did what? Former classmate Brent Black said, about a year ago, I saw him upset in the morning, and I was like, yo, what's wrong with you? And he was like, don't know. And I was like, what's up with you? He's like, I swear to God, I'll shoot up this school. And then I was like, watch what you're saying around me. And then I just left him after that. He came up to me later on the day and apologized for what he said. Like, I'm not one for micro-policing of everybody's statements. But if you put these kinds of statements in conjunction with the social media posts, with other posts that he had, this is not someone in desperation saying, oh, I could just kill that guy. Quoting his own son's comment to him, parent John Crisitelli noted that if you were to pick one person you might predict in the future would shoot up a school or do this, it would be that kid. Former classmate Ocean Parody, I guess her parents are kind of a hippie, she said, he always wore like really patriotic shirts that seemed really extreme, like hating on the Islamic religion. For example, he would say things such as like he would degrade Islamic people as terrorists and bombers. I've seen him wear a Trump hat. Broward County Sheriff Scott Israel said, we've already begun to dissect his websites and things on social media that he was on, and some of the things that have come to mind are very, very disturbing. In September 2017, YouTube creator Ben Knight reported Nicholas Cruz to both the FBI and YouTube for writing, quote, I want to be a professional school shooter, as a comment on one of his YouTube videos. Good. Good for you, Ben. Report it to the authorities. Ben Knight reports that he was immediately contacted by the local FBI office and met with them the following day. Quote, they came to my office the next morning and asked me if I knew anything about the person. I didn't. They took a copy of the screenshot, and that was the last I heard from them. Ben Knight on February 14th, 2018. People leave pretty heinous comments on a pretty regular basis on this channel, and I really don't think anything of it. But this comment said, I'm going to be a professional school shooter, and I knew I couldn't just ignore that. I would like to think that they were already investigating this guy, and they had him at the top of their radar, and that's how they contacted me so quickly. I wish the information could have prevented this from happening. Well, I guess it's a pro tip, Ben. It damn well could have. Cruz used his name. This was not a screen name. He used his actual name, assuming that it's the same guy. He used his actual name. How complicated is this? How complicated is this? This guy with a real name writes something like this on YouTube. What do? Guy, you've got time to go interview the guy whose channel whose video he posted it on. What does that do? He doesn't know anything. Go to YouTube, get an IP address, do a search on social media, find anybody who's got disturbing content, figure out their age, what their history is, what's going on. Oh, this guy got kicked out of a school a bunch of times. God, I mean, everybody gives up their privacy. They search your secret messages, they wiretap, they save, they store, they capture. Why? To prevent violence, to prevent terrorism. Give up all these freedoms, all this privacy. And what do they do with it? They can't get round to actually doing these kinds of searches, the FBI, but by God, they're 100% sure the Russians hacked the election. The FBI made a statement, and I quote, in September 2017, the FBI received information about a comment made on a YouTube channel. The comment said, I'm going to be a professional school shooter. No other information was included in the comment which would indicate a particular time, location, or the true identity of the person who posted the comment. The FBI conducted database reviews and other checks, but was unable to further identify the person who posted the comment. Do a search. Find disturbing content, pick up the phone, and ask. Or go to YouTube and say, hey, by the way. Or go to the NSA and say, by the way, can you give a brother an IP address? Something really bad might be coming down. But no. Because they're really, really busy performing fake investigations into Hillary Clinton's real crimes and real investigations into Donald Trump's imaginary crimes. They got no resources for stuff like this. Why do we give? We give up some of our freedoms in return for protection from the state. One job. Since the shooting, the YouTube creator Ben Knight reported being contacted by the FBI Special Agent Ryan Furr, who left a voicemail. I think we spoke with you in the past about a complaint that you made about someone making a comment on your YouTube channel. I just wanted to follow up with you on that and ask you a question with something that's come up, if you wouldn't mind giving me a ring. On Wednesday, Ben Knight was again visited by the FBI agents and again asked if he knew Cruz. They asked me if I knew who he was. I didn't. I don't. Then they left. Good job. Cracking. Detective work, FBI. Excellent. Well done. Woo. Leaving a smoking trail of Sherlock Holmes' investigatory powers. They already... You post something on someone's channel, they don't know who you are. They already asked him. I don't know who I am. Let's go back and ask him again. That'll crack the case. Now, 9 months ago, an account named Nicholas Cruz, and for those just listening, it's Nikolas. It seems to be kind of like a Czech name, Czech Republic name. Anyway, an account named Nicholas Cruz made a comment on a YouTube video of the 1996 Texas University clock tower sniper saying, I am going to what he did. It's supposed to be, I'm going to do what he did. So that's two. Nicholas Cruz's alleged YouTube account remained active until late Wednesday evening when it was taken down due to, and I quote, multiple or severe violations of YouTube's policy on violence. Well, you know, it's challenging for YouTube. You've got a huge amount of resources devoted to censoring conservatives and shielding Elsagate videos. So not enough time really to look into, I don't know, threats to shoot up schools? Promises, in fact. Not I want to, I'm going to. Priorities. Nicholas Cruz's Instagram page was also a clear digital warning sign and cry for help. Cruz posted numerous photos of himself, wearing bandanas over his face and brandishing various guns and knives, dissecting and exploding lizards, the innards of a frog he said he killed. It's some dark, nasty stuff. And here's the challenge. The FBI has a budget of God knows how much money. There's a police force around. There are teachers. There are administrators. There are supervisors. There are principals. Huge numbers of layers. There were 3 sets of adults. We'll get to his origin story in a sec. A lot of people. Here's an interesting question for you. After the shooting, how long did it take for people to find his social media footprint and figure out what kind of person he was? How long did that take? 5 minutes? 10 minutes? Contemptible. So on his Instagram, Cruz posted one image that was a screen grab of Google search results for what does Allahu Akbar mean? Cruz captioned the photos, well, at least we know what it means when a Sand Durka says Allahu Akbar, laughing face emojis. Another image showed him wearing a red Make America Great Again hat while his entire face was covered by a bandana. I don't know how they know it was him, but that's what is reported. Now, there are rumors that Cruz was tied to a white supremacist organization in Florida. Well, there's still work being done on that. It's back and forth. It might just be a 4chan prank. And an article from Tallahassee.com was titled, Local Law Enforcement, No Ties Between Militia and Florida High School Shooter. That is a fascinating story. I was actually about to record this whole presentation when that broke. It's in flux, to put it mildly, and I will keep you posted on what comes down from that. But no ties, according to local law enforcement, between the militia and this white supremacist militia and a Florida high school shooter. And the media, if it does turn out to be a 4chan prank, and I'd put a little bit more than even odds that it is, you all need to stop being fooled by these genius trolls of chaos and revelation. So, Nicholas's youth. So, Linda and Roger Cruz adopted Nicholas and his brother Zachary when they were very young. Cruz neighbors Malcolm and Christine Roxburgh said, "It was a wonderful idea, 2 older people to have 2 little boys to look after. They were just kind people." Roger Cruz worked in advertising and died after a heart attack in 2004. So 2004, that means that Nicholas Cruz was 5. Linda, the stepmom, asked the daughter of neighbor Christine Roxburgh to take the kids after her husband died, but she declined. Now, we probably will never know, but I'm always curious, like, what happened, right? The husband of the father dies, and it's like, take these kids. I mean, that's unusual to me, and I don't know what age he was when he was adopted. We may never know any of those details. Those records are pretty sealed. Neighbors report that police had been called to Linda's house multiple times, but no arrests were made. Ah, yes, the old, let's not give this kid a record so that he can go on the straight and narrow and achieve a wonderful stairway to the middle class. I guess that works sometimes, and sometimes it really, really doesn't. Neighbor Shelby Spino told the press that Nicholas had previously thrown eggs at her car, stolen mail from neighbors, had bitten another child while growing up, and she witnessed him shooting at chickens owned by another resident. Yeah. Wasn't it Justin Bieber who got into a huge amount of trouble for throwing eggs at his neighbor's house? Stealing mail, that's a pretty significant offense. Shooting at chickens, discharging a weapon in a residential neighborhood, shooting at somebody else's pet/food supply. These all seem like kind of illegal things. But it's a good thing he didn't have a record, you see, so that he could go and get guns. Cruz neighbors Malcolm and Christine Roxburgh described another issue related to animals. He didn't like the pigs and didn't like the neighbors, so he sent over his dog over there to try to attack them. I assume that's the pigs. A lot of farmyard animals in this aggregation of the worst conceivable kids' song ever. Neighbor Helen Pasquiola claimed that Linda would occasionally contact the police to get behavioral advice about her son. I think she wanted to scare them a little bit. Nicholas has behavioral problems, I think, but I never thought he would be violent. The time frame is kind of bouncing all over the place here. But what do you mean, never thought he would be violent? I mean, he's shooting guns in the neighborhood. He's stealing stuff. He's biting another child. What do you mean, never thought he would be violent? Guy's taking bullets to school. He's bringing knives to school. He's talking about hunting and shooting and killing, and he's torturing animals. Pretty big sign for some very dark aspects of the personality, right? You got fascination with fire, not with him, just in general. Fascination with fire, bedwetting past the age of bedwetting, and torturing animals. That's your 3 right there. Another anonymous family member told the media that Nicholas had received counseling from a young age related to autism. She did her best getting him any help he needed. An anonymous family member told an ABC news station, Linda brought them up by themselves. She did the best she could. When Nicholas was young, he needed extra attention. She knew in school he needed extra help. Linda Cruz's sister-in-law, Barbara Kambatovich, said, they were adopted and had some emotional issues. Nicholas was being a problem. I know he did have some issues, and he may have been taking medication. He did have some kind of emotional or difficulties. Linda kept a really close handle on both boys. They were not major issues as far as I know, just things teenagers do, like not coming home on time, maybe being disrespectful. She goes on to say, Linda Cruz put a lot of time and effort into those boys, trying to give them a good life and upbringing. Linda dealt with it like most parents do. She was probably too good to him. She was a lovely woman. She was a hardworking woman. She made a beautiful home for them. She put a lot of effort and time into their schooling, their recreation, whatever they needed. She was a good parent. And she went over and above because she needed to compensate for being a single parent. I don't think it had anything to do with his upbringing. It could have been the loss of his mom. I don't know. Well, that's the Hamlet question, right? Hamlet lost a father. Claudia says, your father lost a father, his father lost a father. Lots of people lose their moms. It happens, if we're lucky, so to speak, to all of us, in that we get to outlive our moms. So the idea that the loss of the mom causes this. Now, when I was younger, I would say it was much more about environment. Now, in this case, not knowing anything about the birth parents, his biological parents, and not knowing anything about what might have gone on, or what age, in fact, he was adopted, what happened before his adoption, I'm a little bit less. It was the environment that he was raised in by the step-parents. There are genetics involved with these, and there are, of course, bonding issues that may not have occurred. Who knows if the parents had been using drugs or alcohol. I mean, who knows, right? Who knows? So I grow, I learn. Linda Cruz, his mother, died from pneumonia on November 1st, 2017. After Linda Cruz's death, Nicholas and Zachary Cruz began living with a family friend. But allegedly, Nicholas didn't like the living arrangement and moved in with a former classmate's family. That's interesting. I mean, my mom left when I was 15, and we took in roommates and struggled. I didn't think to go and live with anyone else. Interesting. The new family encouraged him to get a job at the local dollar store, and they were aware that he was in possession of a legally purchased AR-15, which they required him to keep locked in a safe, but he reportedly had his own key. That seems significant. I don't know that you're really keeping it out of his hands if he has his own key. Family attorney Jim Lewis on Cruz's rifle and why the family allowed him to keep it. He's 19 years old. He's not a kid. And he brought many of his possessions into the home. This family did what they thought was right, which was take in a troubled kid and try to help him. And that doesn't mean he can't bring his stuff into their house. They had it locked up and believed that that was going to be sufficient, that there wasn't going to be a problem. Nobody saw this kind of aggression or motive in this kid, that he would ever do anything like this. Again, shooting up the neighborhood, bringing bullets to school, bringing knives to school, sicking his dog on pigs. I don't know. Somebody wants to come into your home. You say, hey, why aren't you in school? Oh, I got kicked out of a bunch of schools. Oh, I'd better Google that. Oh, my God, look at that Instagram account. I think not. Where do you get this? Working at the dollar store? Where do you get the money for this stuff? Attorney Jim Lewis says they had strict rules about it, the gun, being kept locked in a gun safe, which is our understanding where the gun was locked. They didn't know how it got out. Well, one possibility is he had a key. Nah, that's too simple. It had to be something else. Teleportation. A tractor beam. Family attorney Jim Lewis says he was a smaller kid, and there's some indication that there may have been some bullying going on. But again, he'd been away from the school for over a year and had never shared with them any contempt for the school or anybody here. No anger, just a lot of depression and stuff going on around the loss of his mother. I just want to pause here for a second. I understand the horizontal view versus the vertical view. Horizontal versus vertical. Really, really important. The horizontal view is this kid's nuts. If anyone's going to shoot up the school, it's this kid. He's talking about guns. He's talking about hunting. He's talking about killing animals. He's talking about shooting rats with his BB gun. He's obsessed with weaponry. That's the horizontal view, right? That's what the kids know. Now, the kids don't have any authority in this matter. What do the adults know? Nothing! Nothing! It's a flat line. They have no clue. Things you have to say. Attorney Jim Lewis goes on to say, they didn't see a mentally ill person, or they never would have let him live under their roof. They did not see any danger. They didn't see any kind of predilection that this was going to happen. And they're horrified, just like everyone else. The family is devastated. They didn't see this coming. They took him in, and it's a classic case of no good deed goes unpunished. He was a little quirky, and he was depressed about his mom's death, but who wouldn't be? They've opened their home up for law enforcement, the sheriff's office, the FBI, whoever it is, to go through every stitch to see if they can find any clue in there to find why this has happened. Well, I think I've always said my piece about this. Family attorney Jim Lewis on how Cruz ended up living with a former classmate's family. Quote, they met at the school. The son needed the kid. He didn't have any place to go, so they gave him a room. They feel bad for Nick, but they feel more bad for everyone else involved. The family is just as grief-stricken as everybody else. The young man was at the school yesterday when the shooting occurred, and he has lost friends. They just don't know what to say, and they don't want to talk to anybody. They're shocked. They cannot believe this. This family had no predilection, saw nothing coming. The alleged shooter didn't tip anybody, didn't call anybody, text anybody, or warn anybody that this was about to happen. 9 months previously, he was posting on YouTube. Jim Lewis goes on to say, the family didn't see anything. They said he was very respectful, quiet, and a little depressed about losing his mother, but never did they see anything violent or any aggression to the school or anybody else. They are totally shocked by this. Kids all knew. Adults who actually had some authority and some power know nothing. Family attorney Jim Lewis on Cruz's disturbing social media accounts. They're not social media people. They're parents. They're just not that kind of folks. And he's an adult, and they tried to help him. But did they check up on him and follow him every minute of every day? They didn't. Because they didn't see any of the signs that would indicate that there was anything really amiss, that he was capable of something violent. So they just don't know how to run a Google search. They don't know how to look up somebody's name. They have no relationship to anyone in the neighborhood who ever witnessed anything violent, who ever witnessed anything in terms of theft, stole from the mail. I read he stole from a garage, bit a kid, sicked his dog on a pig, shot chickens. What are they? Are they in some sensory deprivation chamber? Are they Ripley floating through space? I don't know. No idea. Former President Barack Obama said, we are grieving with Parkland, but we are not powerless. Caring for our kids is our first job, and until we can honestly say that we're doing enough to keep them safe from harm, including long overdue common sense gun safety laws that most Americans want, then we have to change. Yeah. Very important to keep kids safe from weaponry. Right, Obama? Very, very important. I don't know. How about you don't drop 100,000 bombs on the Middle East during the course of your presidency? Gun safety laws? How about a couple of drone safety laws? I could go on. Attorney General Jeff Sessions awoke from his dogmatic slumber to say, it cannot be denied that something dangerous and unhealthy is happening in our country. Every one of these cases, we've had advanced indications, and perhaps we haven't been effective enough in intervening. That's not a good place to be, people, when Jeff Sessions is telling you that you're not being effective. Whew. It's like me calling you kind of bald. President Donald Trump said, so many signs that the Florida shooter was mentally disturbed, even expelled from school for bad and erratic behavior. Neighbors and classmates knew he was a big problem. Must always report such instances to authorities again and again. Let us conclude. I mean, I've made the comments as we go along. I think it's fairly clear. A couple of things. Was he on these psychotropics? Was he on these SSRIs? They've got black label warnings from the FDA that they can cause extreme levels of aggression. Why isn't the mainstream media looking into this connection? Because their wide open baby beak mouths are firmly attached to the drug nipples of the pharmaceutical companies who regularly shower them with ad money. So no, they're not going to look into it. It's up to the alternative media, the unbought media, the media that marries you rather than be your whore, the honest media, to point out this potential connection. Look into this. The number of shooters who've been on these drugs is quite significant. Will we find out? Probably not. Is anyone going to be held accountable? Is anyone going to be responsible? Is anything going to change? Quite probably not. So we do have to start looking out for each other. We do have to try and do something to rebuild these communities. And we have to just stop imagining that some agency, some other place, some other person is just going to handle these problems. And we have to stop lying about guns. Look, the shooting happened, in my view, in many ways, because there was this over-solicitous, over-tenderness, let's not give the kid a record. He did a whole series of things that are illegal. I've seen kids charged as adults when they're younger, far younger, than probably when this kid was doing some terrible stuff. So he did a whole bunch of illegal things, and he never got charged, to my knowledge. Because you charge him, you put him in jail. Now, if he's in jail, maybe he gets into fights. Maybe you keep him there. He's off the streets. He's someplace where he can't get guns and go and shoot children down in their school. Of course, when somebody has these kinds of mental issues, people need to be charged with taking care of them. But they're government workers. They're not that motivated. Things don't work out that well when there are no incentives. What are the negatives for failing to do this? And what are the positives for averting something like this or reducing its possibility? There's no incentives. Expecting this kind of proactivity on the part of mental health professionals, the FBI, the police, the superintendents, what's the benefit? It's like expecting factories in Stalin's Russia to be oh so efficient. Incentives are all wrong, all screwed up, because the security and the safety which used to be part of the community has now been turned over to the state, and we have this weird thing where it's like, well, we don't want to charge kids because that's going to put them on the wrong path. It's going to give them a record that's really bad. Well, if you do this kind of stuff, you should be responsible for this kind of stuff. We need to have communities back. We need to have communication back. You know, if I don't know where these people lived, but go knock on the door and say, you know, there's something off about this kid. Here's the stuff you need to know. You're a whole bunch of kids in the school. You know all this stuff. Make a phone call to the people in the house. Say, hey, you got to check out this Instagram page. There's a lot of really disturbed stuff going on here. Something's got to do something. Stop waiting for other people to solve these problems. And stop lying about school stats. My God. An outfit called Everytown put out this, and it's been retweeted and reported on. 18 school shootings in 2018. No, don't lie about things like this. Don't just immediately hop on the bodies of children to chest thump and trumpet your statist expansion of power lust. 18 school shootings. You know what they included in these school shootings? January 3rd, I think it was the first one, 31-year-old man parked outside a Michigan elementary school and killed himself. The school had been closed for 7 months. No teachers around, no students around, pretty empty. Abandoned building. School shooting. January 20th, 1 a.m., a man was shot at a sorority event on the campus of Wake Forest University. A week later at a basketball game, Michigan High School, someone fired several rounds from a gun in the parking lot. No one was injured. It was past 8 p.m. No classes. The classes had long ended for the day. School shooting. Group of college students meeting at a meeting of a criminal justice club in Texas when a student accidentally fired a real gun rather than a training weapon. The bullet went through a wall, then a window. No one hurt. Student really upset. Accident problem. School shooting. Stop lying about these things to pursue your goal of disarming the population. Because that is under the lie of gun control. There were a large number, I'm no lawyer, it's just my perspective, you understand, but there were a large number of laws that this kid broke where he was not prosecuted. He was not convicted. So, I mean, this kid was so far above the law, His last name might as well have been Clinton. So thinking one more layer of legality is going to solve this problem is delusional. There are laws against just about everything heinous that I've talked about here, all the way from shooting at chickens, stealing mail, bringing weaponry to school, and shooting dozens of people. All illegal. Murder, illegal. One more law is not going to solve it. Community involvement is going to solve it. Being proactive. Making sure something happens to protect children. Problem is not guns. We're talking about school shootings here. The real danger is in the schools. So I'm going to leave you with something I wrote years ago. And you can get the context in I have a whole presentation, The Truth About Gun Control. Put a link to it below. If you are for gun control, then you are not against guns, because the guns will be needed to disarm people. So it's not that you're anti-gun. You need the police's guns to take away other people's guns. So you're very pro-gun. You just believe that only the government, which is, of course, so reliable, honest, moral, and virtuous, should be allowed to have guns. There is no such thing as gun control. There is only centralizing gun ownership in the hands of a small political elite and their minions. Thank you so much for listening and for watching. Please help out the show. freedomainradio.com/donate.
Stepan Molyneux on YouTube. Check him out. Subscribe to his channel. I don't always agree with Stepan on a lot of stuff, but he is more of a fact-based person. I'm not always agreeing with all of his sources for facts, but he usually gets a good portion of stuff right. I want to go into that list. Reason.com. This one's titled, "No, there haven't been 18 school shootings this year." Something that the left still at this time is continuing to push this narrative that, oh, there's been 18 school shootings this year. This is just outrageous. Says here the horrific shooting that left 17 dead at Florida High School this week was not, in fact, the 18th such incident this year. Wait, you might be thinking, I've seen that number reported everywhere in the past 2 days on news broadcasts, on social media, in official statements from senators and mayors and celebrities. At this point, or at this moment, it is literally the first Google News result for the number 18. Indeed, the statistic has been everywhere. It is also, the Washington Post reported Thursday evening, flat wrong. Unless your definition of a school shooting is broad enough to include suicides in school parking lots or accidental gun discharges that didn't harm anyone. Every Town for Gun Safety, the Michael Bloomberg-backed anti-gun group founded after the 2012 school shooting in Newtown, Connecticut, was the original source for that particular statistic. The group's initial tweet claiming that the attack at Major Stoneman Douglas High School was the 18th school shooting in 2018 has now been retweeted more than 1,200 times. The group defines a school shooting is in any time a firearm discharges a live round inside a school building or on a school campus or grounds. That is, of course, not what almost anyone means when they use the term school shooting. It is foolish to group the Florida massacre with, say, suicide in the parking lot of a Michigan school, especially when the Michigan school had been closed for months. But that's exactly what every town does. It's foolish, that is, unless your goal is to shock people with the biggest number possible. That might be what every town is trying to do, but such deception does nothing to help advance a discussion about stopping actual school shootings. A quick review of every town's database turns up other outlandish examples on January 10th. Gunshots, which most likely originated off campus, hit a window of the Visual Arts Building at California State University, San Bernardino. Classes were immediately canceled as the university went into lockdown, though a police search failed to turn up any shooter on campus. On February 5th, in a suburb of Minneapolis, a school liaison officer was sitting on a bench talking with some students when a third grader pressed the trigger on the officer's holstered weapon, causing it to fire and strike the floor. Those were no doubt terrifying incidents for the people involved, and they may even have policy implications, but they are not what anyone thinks of when you hear the phrase school shooting. And think about that. That was a school liaison officer. But you wouldn't say, well, we don't want, some type of officer there to try to help protect from crazy people coming in the school with guns. And matter of fact, there was a student on one of the morning shows I'm being interviewed that, brought up, they asked, did your coach, which was also the security person at Douglas High School, did he have a firearm? And they basically was like, no, because maybe if he had one, he wouldn't be dead and the guy would have been stopped. He was hit with bullets and later died. Another tragedy. Says here, but the media and several prominent politicians such as Bernie Sanders eagerly regurgitated the context-free statistic in the aftermath of the school or after the shooting floor, apparently without stopping to wonder why they hadn't heard about the other 17 school shootings that supposedly had happened since January 1st. This isn't an embarrassing case of confirmation bias. Spreading such misleading statistics affects how Americans, from ordinary working people to elected officials, understand and cope with these terrible incidents. It's similar to when Donald Trump falsely claimed that the American murder rate was at a 45-year high. Inflating the stats like that may have been politically expedient for Trump, but it didn't make it any easier to talk about how to craft policies to help those corners of America that really were seeing unusual high crime rates. The media have a difficult, often thankless task in the wake of high-profile crimes. Mistakes are bound to happen, and details are understandably difficult to come by in the first hours after a tragic incident. That's a reason to be more skeptical about seemingly shocking statistics, not less. So, again, emotions are high. People hear this statistic. This one shooting was enough, and then you hear that's the 18th. Oh my gosh, what is going on? Oh, it's just got to stop. Stop. Just stop. Just take all the guns. Just make it stop. That emotional response, and then that emotion, wears off, and crime rates are unusually high. Rape, murder, robberies. And we outlaw guns. Oh, that cop's beating that guy down for no reason. And people are murdering people over here. And how am I going to protect myself? Too bad you outlaw guns. They don't talk about that over, whether it be, you know, Australia, which we talked about the stats. 80% of the guns in Australia haven't been, you know, turned in or, you know, verified. You know, no one knows where these are. Um, I don't know if that stat is still, but, you know, a high, extremely high number of guns were never turned in, basically. Um, then they, you know, you go to England, where if you are a native Briton, you know, in England, you're not probably feeling the safest all the time. They have culture wars going on where let's not assimilate, you know, people from different areas of the world. Let's bring a crap load of people from one area, give them like a whole section of town and let them live there. Oh, well, there's other people. Well, they won't live there long because he's become almost countries within a country because they operate under their own law, their own culture. And sometimes they come from countries where that culture and religion has been manipulated not so good ways. Women aren't treated well. You have a lot of issues. People don't have rights. And then, you know, whether it be, you know, England or somewhere else over in Europe, you know, you try to go into those areas. And if you don't have people with you and a little bit of backup, you might not come out. And they'll still run you out. You'll go in there and then you'll start feeling unsafe pretty quick, and they'll start following you in big groups, and yeah. That's why they're called no-go zones. They're active no-go zones. And a lot of these people aren't citizens. They're still there on some type of a visa. But they're given all this stuff. And then on top of it, after guns were outlawed, robbery, murder, and rape, and a lot of other crimes started going up. It didn't help crime. Oh, there's less shootings. Well, that's, you know, a lot of these gun shootings, again, you know, when they go, oh, you know, this many murders with a gun. Well, how many were those justified where someone had to pull their legally owned firearm to stop someone trying to harm others? Oh, let's forget about that part. We'll just put it in the guns, you know, murder statistics. It really just, it gets out of control. It really irks me that a lot of this is so overlooked and manipulated. That's why I wanted to spend so much time on it today. It just tired after every time a tragedy happens. And I want to sit here and, you know, I want to actually watch the news, hear about the tragedy, and not have policy and politics put into it. We'll talk about that after all the emotion crap, you know, people can regain their footing. And I want it to be more of something for the victims rather than something for the politicians and the media and the leftists. But that's not what they do. And then you get some, naive 16-year-old suburban kid that's never been around firearms that has been taught by some liberal teacher and maybe liberal parents, who knows, more than likely liberal teachers because they're coming out of liberal universities. And I had to deal with that when I was in school, even though at that point there were still a few conservative type teachers around. They were usually older. The newer teachers tended to be very liberal. Women teachers tended to be real liberal. Because, again, a lot of them were, they didn't want to go against, the feminist movement. They had to be feminist, which, that has to be left. You can't be for women and be right. Can't be conservative and for women, even though that's been proven wrong and debunked forever ago. It just really, it makes me hurt for the victims that their names and their death is being used this way. I kind of expect that out of a lot of the politicians on the left. I expect it. I do expect it out of the media, but I shouldn't. And what even makes me mad is I have to come on here and debunk false statements, false statistics put out there. We should talk about actual lawful things that we can do to try to stop this. One, let's not blast it all over the news. Special report, school shooting in some state somewhere else. Okay, it shouldn't be the headline news. It really shouldn't. There's a lot of people dying out there. And even though things like that, when it becomes multiple people in a large building, whether it be a school or a mall or any large building, tends to be abnormally higher, even with the Vegas thing, which, all this funky information out there about the Vegas shooting, no one actually knows what happened. More cameras probably in that one hotel than there is all of New York City, but we don't know what happened exactly. You look at it and yeah, it's abnormal, but the way they put it up there, these people that are doing this, some of them have made comments about being famous. What does media do? Makes them famous. It's not what we should be doing. But the left is not going to let up. They're going to keep playing off people's emotions, lying about things, and extorting people's death to push an ideology that has been disproven. History has proved their gun control theory wrong all it ever has done has led to a extreme authoritarian government. So much that European countries basically started losing their sovereignty to the EU over it. That was something big that the EU, for the EU to successfully be formed. They needed the guns to get out of the hands of the people. Because they knew if the EU started pushing too hard, maybe the British would take to the streets. Well, you got a whole bunch of armed British people taking to the streets. Britain's going to look at the EU and go, yeah, we're the fuck out of here. We're done. We're out of the EU. People have spoken. It took longer. And one thing is, they've done it like the left has here in America. EU's been copying kind of what the left has done. Take it slow. Don't push too hard too fast. But the thing is, they were pushing that line, and they pushed that line with the euro too, their currency. And they got Britain to go, yeah, we're out. We think we can do better on our own. And yet, now you have other countries considering it. Between the euro and the immigration policy of the EU will fail. It will fail. Because its foundation is what will destroy it. To control large amounts of territory. I think everybody wants to be the size of Russia. They want to control the size of Russia. We understand Russia's not populated the way warmer climates are. There's extreme areas of Russia that's just not populated. It's not what you might think it is when you look at the EU versus Russia. There's going to be more people in the EU. But we know what happens when it gets too big. It collapses. It collapses under its own weight. Okay. We are coming up to the end of the broadcast. I did want to play something. Let me see if I got enough time to play it. It's kind of short. Ooh, we're definitely pushing. I don't know if yeah, we should be able to get this. I'm going to play a portion of it. I don't know if I'll be able to play the whole thing, but let me kind of skip ahead of here a little bit. We Are Change on YouTube. Okay, here we go.
Right now, but the Syrian government is actually answering back and saying, well, you guys can't use this drone as an excuse for attacking us since you've been attacking us for years. And the Syrian government is saying, you guys have been coming in and bombing us when we've been fighting rebel groups, including ISIS, and still you take their official side going against us. So obviously this situation is a very messy one. I'm trying to explain it as much as I can, but even I'm getting confused during this explanation because there's a lot of propaganda and misinformation out there. Of course, we have the IDF and Israeli government saying that they heavily struck the Iranian forces inside of Syria. The Syrian government and Iranian forces are saying you didn't do anything. I mean, just right now, the Israeli prime minister said that the airstrikes dealt a severe blow to Iran. The Syrian government is answering back, being like, nothing really happened. You guys didn't really attack us at all. So this is a very important incident because even the Israeli government is saying, well, it wasn't shot down. This plane crashed. The Israeli government is saying the drone was the provocation for this. The Israeli government is saying that's it. We're escalating this. But this is the first time, honestly, since 1982, since an airplane, Israeli warplane, was shot down by enemy fire. The first time, of course, was during the Lebanon War. This war is expanding, and the implications are going to have greater ramifications since it's not only Syria and Israel that are involved here. We, of course, have Russia. We, of course, have China. We, of course, have Hezbollah and Iran on the side of the Syrian government. And we are seeing a lot of strong messages by Putin right now, who just got on the phone call with Netanyahu and told him to avoid these dangerous escalations as soon as possible. Now, of course, Tillerson from the United States called Netanyahu and said, we have your back. So these two superworld powers, they're converging and they're coming to a head. And an important aspect the mainstream media is forgetting here is that, once again, the Israeli government is on the side of the rebel groups. And there's actually a new UN report that just came out a while ago, actually. Let me double check this. Let me fact check this. Yes, there's a new UN report saying that the IDF was actually maintaining regular contact with ISIS members during the conflict that was evolving inside of Syria. So that's how strongly the Israeli government, alongside Saudi Arabia and the United States, want to get rid of Bashar al-Assad and the Iranian influence inside of Syria, that they're willing to even join radical Islamic terrorists like we've seen them, and now we're getting more evidence of happening right now.
That's right, Luke. And the United States' goal, whether it was stated or not, is to get rid of the Bashar al-Assad regime. It has nothing to do with ISIS. And when there's this large power struggle between us, the Russians, Saudi Arabia, China, well, we only have more chaos to ensue. We've far from seen the last of this. And unfortunately, this is going to pull us further and further into a destructive war-like scenario with big superpowers. But I want to talk about another global player. We got to move on because as we talk abroad, we have somebody making a big move, another big move. And that somebody is Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos is now going to be launching his own shipping service that will go up against FedEx, UPS, and he's starting in Los Angeles. But Luke, we know where Jeff Bezos starts. He intends to finish globally. This man is about global domination, sir.
Well, definitely. I mean, we just found out through WikiLeaks that he officially works with the CIA. Amazon, Jeff Bezos, they have contracts with the Central Intelligence Agency. This man is buying up Whole Foods. This man is buying up the Washington Post. This man is buying up huge amounts of influences, and we've been concentrating on him for a very long time because literally, if you look at the up-and-coming people, at the up-and-coming next most powerful, most elite, most richest people in the world, Jeff Bezos is number one on that list.
That's absolutely right. In fact, this January, if you're looking at the numbers, the mainstream media numbers, he's supposedly, Luke, the richest man in history. Let me repeat that. He is the richest man in history. And let's talk about this just for a moment. He owns a major media outlet, the Washington Post. He has a CIA contract for their cloud service that was only revealed to us through WikiLeaks. He has bought up a large-scale, very popular food place, Whole Foods, and he is far from done. So what are we saying here? We're saying we need to keep an eye on this guy. His influence has grown so much over the past decade plus, and Luke, it's set to grow even further.
Yeah, I mean, he may even get a Pentagon. I believe he may even already gotten a Pentagon program and a budget where he's going to be supplying the Pentagon with supplies. So just with that CIA breach, we only found out about that because of WikiLeaks. What else is this man working on that we don't even know about now? And of course, he's entered into the world of quantum computing and artificial intelligence, which should scare the utter crap out of everyone and make everyone poop their pants because of the godlike powers that these few technocrats are establishing within ourselves. Now, to segue, Jason, this is, obviously someone we need to watch out for, someone we need to look out for. He even has the evil villain haircut. He has a bald head. All the markings are on the wall. People, Jeff Bezos is someone that we need to be extremely skeptical of and look out for, especially with his emerging power that he is gaining every single day. Now, before we go on to the next stories, we're just going to shotgun through these because there's so much news happening, Jason, right now. It's hard to expand and go on tangents about them, but these were the two stories that I think should be highlighted this week. What other stories are you seeing this week that people should know about?
Absolutely. Now, you look at Duarte. For those that don't know who this guy is, he's making rumblings across the globe, Luke. He is the president of the Philippines, and he is in this embittered, very violent drug war. So now the Hague is saying, well, we might be bringing you up on charges, sir. And what is his response? Shoot me. Don't jail me, to the Hague prosecutor. And the reason I bring this up is because this guy is making a lot of headway in the mainstream media. People either love him or hate him. And this is a very, very, very complex issue. As you and I both know, in most cases, governments run the drugs. They work with the cartels. So this story is far from over. He's being painted like a villain in some respects. He's been painted like a hero in others. I think the truth lies somewhere in between.
Exactly. Some people love him, some people hate him. But after personally visiting the Philippines, after living in Manila, I have to say drugs aren't the major problem in the Philippines. If you study John Perkins and have ever read Economic Hitman, Philippines is the perfect case study for the economic hitman and the kind of corporatocracy that is ruling over there and taking away resources from all of its people.
Absolutely, Luke. And we are going to move on to the next story. The Las Vegas shooter autopsy has now been released under duress, really. It wasn't really going to be released. The Associated Press, the Las Vegas Journal, they sued, they got that release. And according to the press, because, again, we don't have access to this autopsy report as of yet, Luke. It hasn't made the internet. But they're trying to say even though he was on antidepressants, he was sober at the time, it's not giving any insight. I just want to know, why has it taken so long for this to be released, and why did it have to go to court in order for two news journals to get this, including the Associated Press? It doesn't make much sense.
I mean, the government is pretty much putting their foot in their mouth by how much they're willing to not disclose and how secretive they're behaving while they're changing up the darn story of what actually happened in Las Vegas, which, again, is a major event that's not getting any major attention by the mainstream media. But these bigger updates should be talked about, and they're not. But that's why you're here watching this channel.
Absolutely, Luke. And for our final...
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. And, again, Vegas shooting... There's a lot of unanswered questions there that it's leaving way too much open, that there's sketchy stuff going on there. Again, heart out to, people that are losing things, but you if you think you're going to stop crazy with the law, you haven't read a history book and you haven't read recent news in other countries that have outlawed guns, and they still have even mass murder problems with knives. Over 100 stabbed by one guy with a knife. Yeah. So it happens, and you can't stop it, but you can try to protect yourself. Thank you all for tuning in. Stay tuned here on UC Wide.